Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtikhi. Today we are continuing to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, titled Description of Adverse Fruitive Activities, Text 34. Adastan Naralokasya Yavati Yatanadayaha Karmasha Samnukramaya Punar Atra Vrajeshuchihi Adastan Naralokasya Yavati Yatanadayaha Kramasha Samnukramaya Punar Atra Vrajeshuchihi Adastan Naralokasya Yavati Yatanadayaha Kramasha Samnukramaya Punar Atra Vrajeshuchihi Word to word meaning Adastat from below, Naralokasya human birth, Yavati as many, Yatana punishments, Adayaha and so on, Kramashaha in a regular order, samnukramya, having gone through, punaha, again, atra, here on this earth, abrajet, he may return, shuchihi, pure. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. Purport. Just as a prisoner who has undergone troublesome prison life is set free again, the person who has always engaged in impious and mischievous activities is put into hellish conditions, and when he has undergone different hellish lives, namely those of lower animals like cats, dogs and hogs, by the gradual process of evolution, he again comes back as a human being. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that even though a person engaged in the practice of the yoga system may not finish perfectly and may fall down for some reason or the other, his next life as a human being is guaranteed. It is stated that such a person who has fallen from the path of yoga practice is given a chance in his next life to take birth in a very rich family or in a very pious family. It is interpreted that rich family refers to a big mercantile family because generally people who engage in trades and mercantile business are very rich. One who is engaged in the process of self-realization or connecting with the Supreme Absolute Truth but fell short is allowed to take birth in such a family or in the family of pious Brahmanas. Either way, he is guaranteed to appear in human society in his next life. It can be concluded that if someone is not willing to enter into hellish life as in Tamishra or Andha Tamishra, then he must take to the process of Krishna consciousness, which is the first class yoga system, because even if one is unable to attain complete Krishna consciousness in this life, he is guaranteed at least to take his next birth in a human family. He cannot be sent into a hellish condition. Krishna consciousness is the purest life and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell to take birth in a family of dogs or hogs. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 3rd canto, 30th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Bhadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Dalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As the chapter is entitled, adverse fruitive activities. So fruitive activities are there, and then there is adverse fruitive activities, activities which again produce a human body. That's a fruitive activity. So that's how the Lord described it in the 8th chapter. What is karma is that which creates another body, fruitive activity. And within that there is adverse fruitive activity, where a person is overcome by greed, is not satisfied with the wealth that he gets by proper means, then he tries to get wealth by various unscrupulous means, as Prabhupada writes in the 16th chapter, Divine and Demoniac Nature, that section where a person tries to get wealth from black market, and how that money that he gets becomes the passage to the hellish planet. 3 gates that lead to hell. One of them is, what are the 3 gates? Greed. Greed, lust and anger. So the concepts explained in the Gita in few lines, they get expanded and they are graphically described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we can see that here, how the living entity being overcome by greed, lust and anger is put through various hell, and now every time he goes through those reactions, he is getting purified. The material world is described as a prison, but Prabhupada will say there's no shackles in your hands and there's no bars. You don't see any bars. But still you're shackled. How? By the shackles of sex life. One is bound by this, and today's verse, beginning of the purport, you're seeing how a person who is set free is compared to a prisoner who has undergone a troublesome prison life. All that troublesome life was described earlier. A very graphic description. Why are such graphic descriptions given? So that, as Mother Devahuti requested, to practice bhakti more seriously, the effect of such reactions, what happens when a person indulges in all of that. So this knowledge will help one quickly get detached from material activities which entangle him. Just as a person develops attachment towards the Lord, if he parallelly gets entangled in material activities, then it's like lighting a fire and pouring water again. So lighting the fire is the fire of devotional service, but engaging in fruitive activities and abominable activities, that's like pouring water. So one should light the fire but stop pouring water. For stop pouring water, we should be detached, and that's why such graphic descriptions of getting entangled and all of that is being brought out in this particular section. And today this verse focuses on how a person, having gone through all of that purification due to his impious and mischievous activities, by a gradual process of evolution, he has again come back as a human being because he is sufficiently purified, shuchihi. Punishments and adaya and so on. So there is sin and there is sinful reaction. For example, a person kills a goat. The sin is that he has to be killed again. But the sinful reaction is that he has to take birth and he has to go to hell, go through all of those hellish conditions, again come back and take birth as a goat to be killed again by the same goat which he killed in the previous life. So that's why when goat is offered to Goddess Kali, the mantra is chanted that this life I am killing you, next life you can kill me, Mamsa. So what the offering does is, it prevents you from going to hell, but it doesn't prevent you from getting killed by the same person again. So you kill a goat, then the goat again takes birth as a human to kill you. But by offering as a sacrifice, you are saved from going to hell and go through all of that, but you still have to come back and get that same reaction. So a sensible person should think, why should I indulge in this? Just for sense pleasure. Now I kill, this life I kill you, next life you can kill me. That's the mantra chanted in the year of the goat. So this is how we understand the complicated nature of the sin and the sinful reaction. The rigorous purification that has been organized by the Lord through this system of putting the living entity through hellish condition and making them purified. This is one pathway. Srila Prabhupada immediately starts the next line by focusing on the solution, which is the path of yoga system. So that gives us a lot of relief. You don't have to go through all of that cycle. There is a better way of getting purified, because the bhakti yoga process is also a purifying process. Now a person taking up this yoga practice, bhakti yoga practice, he is giving up all his material attachments, material comforts, and even sacrificing his material achievements, and now he takes up the yoga path. Having taken the yoga path, if for example, for discussing a worst case scenario, Arjuna asks, what happens if a person who takes up this yoga path, having given up all his material aspirations and ambitions and all of that, he comes here and he fails here also, then he'll be left, he's neither materially successful nor spiritually successful. Isn't that a valid fear that everyone has? That what happens if I give up material success, ambition, achievement, and I take up spiritual path, yoga path, and I fail in that also? I'm neither here nor there. So that's why, to reassure Arjuna, Lord gives us these two verses which Srila Prabhupada quotes in his purport, Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe. So this reassurance is there so that a yogi who takes up the path of spiritual advancement, then Prabhupada describes there are two pathways. Yogi who is taking the path, he is made little progress, but he gets enamored by his previous material attachment, and then he falls away from the path of yoga. So this is one pathway. The other pathway is a person who makes sufficient advancement, and then later on he falls away from the path of yoga. So in either cases, because the person has taken the path of yoga, bhakti yoga especially, the Lord takes the responsibility of putting him in a home where he can continue where he left off. So several principles we can learn from this is that the soul as such is eternal, and whatever spiritual assets you gain by doing your spiritual practices, those assets also are eternal. They are not taken away at the time of death. Body doesn't survive death, but the soul survives. And the spiritual advancement that you made, spiritual assets that you have gained, those those spiritual practices you have done, they create a lot of impressions in you, samskars. You carry that to the next life. You can't hold on to your material possessions at the time of death. All of that is taken away. But what you can carry, the positive side is that all of the spiritual practices, samskars, the impressions that you have gained, the knowledge that you have gained, the advancement that you have made, that is not lost. That's why Lord Krishna says, Prapya punya kritam lokam usitva shashvati samaha shuchinam srimatam gehe yoga brashta abhijayate. Yoga has become brashta, one who has fallen from the path of self-realization. But the advancement that he made, that doesn't end, that doesn't diminish, it's not taken away. All your material possessions are gone, but your spiritual assets still stay with you. So a point to learn for us is we have to be mindful of accumulating a lot of spiritual advancement and assets when we are active, when we are able to do active devotional service, so that at the time of death, these assets are the ones that we take to the next life. Now the advantage of being born in those families, Prabhupada explains in his purport that being born in a rich mercantile family, you are saved from the hard labor of earning the wealth, because wealth is already there, and the yogi who takes birth, who is a bit more advanced, he is given a much more rare birth, which Krishna describes in the next verse, that 6.42, Durlabhataram. So he is born the yogi who makes more progress and falls at a later stage of his yoga path. He is given a birth in the family of learned transcendentalists. Atava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yad idrisham. Dhimatam, those who are endowed with great wisdom, so you are born in that family. So that right from your birth, you are hearing Krishna's pastimes, you are eating Krishna Prasadam because the mother eats Krishna Prasadam. You are surrounded by the environment which is very, very conducive for you to start off from where you left. From the birth, he again gets those good impressions. And this kind of, as Krishna describes, this creates the environment, because the environment that you are in gives you stimulus or inspiration. If it's a good environment, it's a spiritual environment, it gives you inspiration to do more spiritual activities. That's why when you come to temple, you feel inspired, because the whole environment is surcharged with spiritual energy. Mahatmanastu mam partha dhaivim prakriti mashita. So the concept of taking shelter of the Daivi Prakriti, that's there, and this the yogi takes advantage of, and then he makes progress from where he left. So in that purport, Prabhupada explains that the children born in such a family receive spiritual impetus. So this impetus is one of the key factors for devotion, where the environment gives you that impetus and then you take off from where you left. So when this impetus is given from the very beginning of life, it's a huge advantage. That's why Prahlad Maharaj will insist that to his demoniac classmates, they have to start practicing spiritual life from Kaumaram Achare Prajna. They have to start from very early age. Prabhupada continued to write 6.42. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India, there are many such Acharya families. So later on, Prabhupada explains about his own scenario. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. So if you read Lilamrita, we'll see the spiritual environment in which Srila Prabhupada is born, where his father is always engaged in worshipping the deities. So as a baby, when Prabhupada wakes up, Abhay wakes up, he'll see his father doing his worship, ringing the bell, ding, ding, ding. You'll hear, if you read Lilamrita, you'll read that section where as a child, when he wakes up, he's seeing his father doing worship. So what this creates is a strong impression. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tat eve karojana. Whatever a great man does, common man follows. So here is born in a great family. So naturally, as Prabhupada writes, fathers, mothers and teachers are natural leaders. So you're born in such family, you're given that inspiration right from a young age, and that sets the scene for a fallen yogi. In this case, in Srila Prabhupada's life, his father also encouraged him and even insisted that he learn Mridanga. And whenever other sadhus come, he will insist that they give blessings to Abhay Charan, that he becomes a good devotee. So these are all the advantages where we also see this pastime of a small Ratha Yatra being organized in the complex where Srila Prabhupada is born. Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charan, insists that he wants to have a small Ratha Yatra. And by seeing that, other families also get inspired. So the spark is there that's getting more fanned, and then through that, the whole environment, the whole complex of the whole entire building, all of them get inspired. Why? Because they have taken birth in such a family. The family is encouraging. They are always worshipping the Lord and they are eating Krishna Prasadam. So in this way, the fallen yogi is given an environment where he is able to progress. Contrast that with the tough purification which is organized by the material nature. So this is how Srila Prabhupada contrasts, and then he encourages us that if you don't want to glide into such hellish life, here is a very sophisticated system of Bhakti Yoga, that the purification happens but not in a very troublesome way, but in a very enjoyable way. Susukam kartum avyayam. So that's how Prabhupada says in this, if a person doesn't want to enter into hellish life, as in Tamishra or under Tamishra, then he must take to the process of Krishna consciousness, which is the first class yoga system. So why is it called the first class yoga system? Because even if you fail at an early stage or at a later stage, you are still covered. You don't have to go into hellish life, but instead a materially attached yogi, he is elevated to heavenly planets, he enjoys, again he comes back, or he is given a birth directly in a family of a transcendentalist. And Prabhupada makes a statement, he cannot be sent into a hellish condition. So, in the Ajamil section, Yamaraj will instruct his Yamadutas that do not bring those who have gone to the temple of Vishnu and bowed their head down, seen the dead. Please don't bring such people who have chanted the name, who have gone to the temple, who have bowed down. Don't bring them. Others, you please bring. So that is why Prabhupada makes a statement. He cannot be sent into a hellish condition. Krishna consciousness is the purest life, and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell to take birth in a family of hogs and dogs. Even though we have this sophisticated system, in the Gita, the Lord makes a couple of statements which makes us question His merciful nature. Because there, in the 16th chapter, the Lord says that He puts those who are greedy, envious, He puts them again and again into hellish condition, and there is no hope of them getting back to His shelter. So if the Lord is organizing such a hellish punishment, and He emphatically says, personally says that He Himself organizes that kind of punishment, how can He be called the All-Merciful? So 16.19 and 20 is where we see the Lord making those statements, where He personally emphatically says, Tanaham dvishada kruram samsareshu naradamam kshipami adisham ashubam asuresh eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Then the next verse, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demonic life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So, if the Lord is making these two statements, then how can we advertise Him to be all merciful? Any thoughts on that? The Lord is putting those them in those conditions because they wanted it. Okay. They want to be more envious. The Lord is fulfilling those desires. Prabhupada writes in 16.20 book, it may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all merciful if if He is not merciful to such demons. So what Chandan Chachit Prabhu is saying that the Lord is fulfilling their desire by putting them in such demoniac bodies so that they can continue to envy the Lord. Okay, any other points? How can the Lord be called all merciful? Very good point. Because He delivered Jagai and Madai. In what form did He deliver Jagai and Madai? Yeah, very good point. Can you expand on that? In what form? In the form of a devotee. Yes. So here we understand, in a family, if when they're grooming a child, the parents may take turns in chastising and comforting. Chastising and comforting. If one of them is chastising, the other may comfort. If the other person is chastising, the other one may comfort. So, as the Supreme Lord, who has come to establish Dharma and to save the pious, so the Lord, as Lord Krishna, is making this statement that He is going to put those living entities who are envious in those hellish conditions, and they can never approach Him. So, but as a devotee, when he takes the form of a Bhakta avatar, so that's why Panchatattva, we have this Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, Bhakta Avataram, Bhaktakyam, Namami, Bhakta Shaktikam. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarupa is Nityananda Prabhu, Bhakta Avatar is Advaita Acharya, Bhakta Shakti is Gadadhar Pandit, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, Bhakta Avataram, Bhaktakyam. So Bhaktakyam is Srivasa. So when the Lord appears as His own devotee, Panchatattva, they break open the storehouse of love of Godhead, and they don't discriminate whether a person is qualified or not qualified, patra, apatra, they is qualified or not qualified, they give them the highest love of God, even to those who are not qualified. So, when Srila Prabhupada was lecturing on Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, 7.9.8, he makes this point about how Jagai and Madai were delivered by the strength of the holy name. And it was done by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Papi tapi yata chilo Hari Nama Udarilo, Thare Sakshi, Jagai Madai. When the same Lord appears as Panchatattva, they approach even the most abominable, who are living a current life itself is hellish, and next life they are going to glide into hellish life. In fact, in the 3rd chapter, Lord Krishna describes that don't disturb those who are engaged in fruitive activities. Let them get purified gradually. A learned man should not go undisturbed. But in the Prabhupada will explain that the devotee knows the purpose of the Lord, so therefore he will take all the risks to go and approach them and educate them and prevent them from gliding into hell. So in his lecture, Prabhupada will give this logical example of a person is sleeping and somebody is trying to come and kill him, and you are shouting at that person, asking him to wake up and run. So the person may complain, hey, why are you waking me up from sleep? But you're going to be killed, wake up. So this discomfort in enlightening others is to save them from gliding into hell. Therefore, the devotees, knowing the purpose of the Lord, they take all the risks and go and teach. And they preach. And they reach out to different people. Now, who is sitting in the heart of the devotee and inspiring to do that? Lord Himself. Therefore, He is merciful. . So we saw one example of Jagai Madai being delivered by Panchatattva. We also see Narad Muni, he is the Bhakti Avesh Avatar, Shakti Avesh, but he is empowered with this Bhakti potency. What does he do? He also doesn't discriminate whether he is approaching a demon or a Devata. He approaches everybody and induces them to take up Bhakti. And he has got his whole strategy to preach. That's why Bhagavatam, different cantos, if you read, he'll be approaching people of different nature. Like he will approach Prachina Barhi, and then he will graphically show, and then he will transform him. He will curse the sons of Kuvera. What's the name of them? Kuvera and Manigriva. And they get delivered. Then Narad Muni preaches to Mrigari, the hunter, transforms him from being a hunter to a great devotee. So who is sitting inside the heart of Narad Muni and asking him to go to different places and do it? Who is doing it? It's the Lord. So that's why Bhagavatam describes that this famous verse where Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abir Shumba Yavana Kashadaya Ye Anyecha Papa Yadapasha Yashaya Sudyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Nama. By taking shelter of Apashrayashaya, by taking shelter of your devotees, even those who are born in various lowest species of life, they are getting delivered, then how glorious are you and your devotees. So Prabhupada writes in 2.4.18, even those who are constantly engaged in sinful acts are all corrigible to the standard of perfect human beings if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Jesus Christ and Muhammad, two powerful devotees of the Lord, have done tremendous service on behalf of the Lord on the surface of the globe. So here are the examples of how the Lord is sending His representatives to reclaim those fallen souls. Even though in the Gita He says it, Lord Krishna Himself demonstrates His merciful attitude towards the demons by killing them. The speciality of the Lord is that when Lord Krishna kills the demons, the body that the demon has got, which is a result of an accumulated sinful reactions, all of that is getting finished, and they attain Paramgati, they attain the ultimate destination, because Lord is personally killing them. His Holiness Bhanuswami was explaining about how Hiranyakashipu is killed by who? Narasimhadev. Hiranyaksha is killed by Varahadev. So they take birth again as, what do they take birth as? Ravana and Kumbhakarna. They are getting killed by Lord Rama. They again take birth as Shishupal and Tandavaka. And when they get killed by Lord Krishna, they don't take birth again. They are delivered. That is the speciality of the Lord, that when He appears, He instills that sense of fear in the heart of the demons, and they continuously start to think about Him. When Kamsa arranged the sacrificial arena with a sacrificial bow and all of that, so he placed several checkpoints before Lord Krishna can enter the sacrificial arena. The powerful bow was kept, and there was a large security managing that bow. So Lord Krishna and Balaram, they ignore all the security. Krishna nonchalantly takes the bow and breaks it. So the sound of breaking that reaches the sacrificial arena where Kamsa is there. Then the securities, they were very angry, they were charging against the Lord. So Krishna picks up one part of the bow and Balaram picks up the other part of the bow and they beat the security, they are all killed. So the message reaches Kamsa. From that point onwards, Kamsa, who was even prior to that, the fear was instilled in him. So he was constantly meditating on the four-handed form of the Lord, trying to come and kill him. So he was Kalanemi. In the previous birth, he was killed by Vishnu. And this birth, he hears a prophecy that he will be killed. And from that time onwards, he has been meditating. And when he hears this news that the death has come to my own city and it's very close. So it's described that when Kamsa is seeing his own face in the mirror, he sometimes sees that there is no head. When he is walking, he is supposed to leave traces. When you walk, you leave traces, right? Sometimes he can't see his own footsteps. When he looks at his own shadow, he can see there are holes in it. In his dreams, he is seeing ghosts being driven on top of animals. So he is seeing all of these signs. Then he organizes Krishna and Balaram to fight with Chanur and Mushtik. So Krishna chooses Chanur, Balaram chooses Mushtik. So when the wrestling is organized, that same Lord whose body the devotees would want to touch and worship, he allows his body to be touched and wrestled and to be thrown around, because in wrestling, each of them, they lock their hands, they lock their legs, they lock their head, they lock their chest, and they hit each other, punch each other, carry each other and even whirl them around. So each one takes turn in doing that. So the wrestler does it for Krishna, the Krishna does it for wrestler. Like this, what's happening? Chanu is becoming Krishna conscious. Mushtik is becoming Balaram conscious. This is the way the Lord extends His mercy. And of course, the Lord finally kills them by giving them, entering into their memory through fear, by physically allowing them to touch Him, and then finally killing them, seeing the Lord and dying. That gives them liberation, so they don't have to take birth again. In this way, the Lord is merciful. By entering into their minds and making them constantly remember Him, what happens? It is purifying, Shuchi. What is that prayer? O apavitra pavitrova sarvavastam gatopiva yahasmare pundarikaksham sa bhayantara Shuchi. If you think of the Lord, what are you becoming? Shuchi. By entering into their minds through fear, physically allowing them to touch His body and wrestle and do all of that, He enjoys rasa, but He also gives that benefit of others and He liberates them from such demoniac bodies. So, seeing these two wrestlers die, others come, Toshala, Shala, they also end up with the same fate. Now all the people in the arena, they are cheering up. They are all happy, jubilant, except for Kamsa. So Kamsa screams at Krishna and Balaram that they must be killed, arrest them. And then, so this is one level. Then he makes this, he blasphemes at Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva. He orders that they must be arrested and they must be killed. And Ugrasen also must be arrested and killed. So once Krishna hears this statement, from the ground he jumps and reaches the place where Kamsa is there. Kamsa is sitting in a high-rise dais. He's in a much higher platform. So immediately, even before people could see, Krishna jumps, and Kamsa, knowing that death has come, he takes up his sword and he's moving here and there, trying to defend himself and trying to attack Krishna. Now it's described that how, as Garuda catches the snakes with a tough grip, Lord Krishna catches hold of Kamsa, jumps from the high-rise platform into the ground. Acharyas described Krishna first puts Kamsa on the ground and lands on him. The entire weight of Krishna alone was sufficient to take off the life air of Kamsa. So Krishna gives only 2 punches on his chest, and Kamsa's life air is gone. The person who has been meditating when he is walking, sleeping, all the life from the point he heard about that Krishna is going to kill him, he's been meditating. That's why Kamsa has given us an example of remembering Krishna in a wrong way. Gopya kama bhayat kamso dvesha chaidyaryo nrupa sambandha krishnaya sneha yuyam bhaktya vayam vibhu. Gopya kama bhayat kamso. By instilling fear in the mind of the demons, he enters into their minds, remains there, and finally kills them, so they don't take birth again. This is one of the mercy of the Lord. We saw how he enjoys rasa, but we also understand that he delivers the demons by personally killing them. And this is also confirmed by Bhishma Dev in his prayer, where he says that by just glancing at the opposing party, you reduce their lifespan. And when they die looking at your form, Arjuna is shooting arrows at them, and they are seeing your form and they are dying. Tataiva chamye naraloka veera ye ahave Krishna mukara vindam netrai pibanto nayanaviramam parthastra puta. Parthastra is hitting them. Parthastra puta paramapurasya. As just by glancing at the opposing party, he reduced the life. And when Arjuna is killing them with the arrows, they are seeing the beautiful form of the Lord and dying. They are also getting their swarupa. By this, the Lord is extending His mercy. The conclusion is that whoever dies looking at the personality of Godhead within or without attains His Swarupa, which is the highest perfection of life. 1.9.39, where Bhishma Dev is glorifying that Parthasarathi form. Vijayarata kudumba artha totre dhritaha yarashmini tat chirikshani ye Bhagavadirastu me mumurshu yamiha nirikshaya hata gata swarupam. When at the time of death, let my ultimate attention be on that Supreme Lord, who is the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, was very careful to give protection. Kutumbe is the object of protection at all risk. That is Arjuna. Those who saw him on the battlefield, Hata Gata Swarupam, Yamiha Nirikshaya, by looking at the Lord in that form, Hata, who died, Gata, they attained their Swarupam. Yamiha Nirikshaya Hata Gata Swarupam. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. This is how the Lord is merciful. I'll conclude there and see if there are any comments or questions or corrections. Yes.
Does the Lordship's letting the jiva fall down is his extreme compassionate nature, and then as you describe, he later on comes to divide the jiva. So, is he trying to exhibit his compassionate nature that he will never take the little free will away?
Yes.
Is that the reason why he's actually being so compassionate?
Yeah.
Let us commit sins, but at the same time he will actually come like
Yeah.
Jedi and
Yeah.
should we understand?
Yeah, so the Lord doesn't take our free will, so He is compassionate enough to allow us to. Now, love as such cannot be forced. Love has to be spontaneous. For that, I have to have a choice to exercise my free will, whether I should love Krishna or whether I should leave Krishna. If that choice is not there, if all of us are programmed to love Krishna by design, when He expands, He will make all of them as devotees. All are Nityasiddhas, all are. Just like, for example, we had a devotee bringing in his child. We are supposed to keep quiet. The child started but he's singing the name of Krishna only. But it caused us a little disturbance. What did the father do? He did not beat the child and put a sticker on the child's mouth, and while bringing itself put a tape on the mouth of the child and bring and open the mouth and then say Hare Krishna, the father doesn't do it. He allows the child to exercise his free will to this is proper behavior, this is improper behavior. So if that choice is not given, if automatically by design if you are forced to love Krishna, that is not spontaneous, that's not love. That is putting a gun on somebody's head, say, you love me. That's by force. So Lord doesn't want that forced love. Therefore, He gives that free will. And because this free will is there is a possibility of misusing it. And when there's living entities, so many living entities, they misuse it, and that many living entities fall. So He makes arrangement, as you said, for compassion for those living entities who have turned their faces away. The whole material world is created, facilities are given, all of that. He again descends to this material world, does the pastimes and all of that. So the point is, yes, the Lord is compassionate enough to give us the free will, and it is up to us whether we use it in the right way or the wrong way.
As described in the shloka, it's a huge punishment once what person who's not in Krishna consciousness has to go through all the forms of jiva
Yes.
before he actually rises or is in
Human form. Yeah. Because that is what is desired, that is the desire the living entity has. Say for example, now the child wants to go out and play. That's what you insist. That's what you insisted. It's not the father's fault. The child insists that I want to play outside. Child insists I want to go to the park. The child insists I want to go to Luna Park. Who's at fault? So because we are insisting as neutral as Paramatma, he sanctions. You know that eating ice cream will spoil your teeth. The child will ask for it, make a big scene. The father will say, no, sorry. You make a big scene in public, and then he buys one ice cream after the other. The tooth gets decayed. He again takes him to the dentist, gets the tooth. What to do? And whose fault is father? You only gave ice cream, that's why it is your fault. You only, that's why I am suffering. Okay. That accusation also he will take because he is compassionate. Because he doesn't, the child doesn't know. So, and because the system is designed in such a way that you go one after the other, after the other, after the other. But however, even into hellish situations, he sends his devotees to go and deliver. It is said that, and reading Gita Mahatmya, one of the chapters, I don't know which one, by reciting that chapter, one time, one person delivered all the persons from the hellish life so that Yamaraj did not have anything else to do. So reading some, I need to look at that particular chapter, Gita Mahatmya, where it is said that all of them, so by us doing Harinam Sankirtan, we are creating a big impact on the whole society. And many of them are getting delivered, we don't know that. So by allowing himself to be accessed through the holy name, whether you are pure or impure, chant my name, by that he is giving the chance. By making others recite scriptures, you are delivering people in the hellish life. They don't have to go through all of that. And now the responsibility is with us. Now that we know this, it's up to us to do it. Okay? We'll end here. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
she was actually contemplating committing suicide. Because Ravana has just come, threatened, and Sita Devi is like, no, I've been here for so many months, still no news, what's the point? So then to rejuvenate her, to bring hope to her, he starts to recite about glories of Lord Ram. And then she asks, who is it? And then Hanuman slowly comes, introduces himself, and then he conveys the message, gives the token, jewelry, to win the trust of Mother Sita. So by that time, and then Hanuman also tells Mother Sita, Lord Ram, he is feeling so much pangs of separation from you. Even his jewelry, which at one point he used to wear as a ring, it's become like his bracelet, like that he says. That's how thin he has become. So then